Hey everyone, today we're making Colby cheese, which is great for sandwiches or to put on crackers for a snack. So what I've got going here is 1.5 cups of water combined with 1.5 tablespoons of agar powder. This is what agar powder looks like. If you buy it online, it's hard to find it in bulk, so I do order that through Amazon. You could also use 5 tablespoons of agar flakes that you would buy in the Asian section of the store. But today I'm using agar powder. I seem to have better luck with the powder. So this is what makes the cheese very gelatinous and turn into like a block of cheese, which is what we want it to do. So the recipe says to bring this to a boil and then reduce the heat and simmer for 5 to 10 minutes until it's completely dissolved and thick. So I'm going to do that and come back. I would not leave this unattended on the stove though, because it could burn or scorch. Okay, now that our agar mixture is completed, I'm going to pour that into a blender. And it's steaming hot. But this is what makes the cheese really gelatinous. You can see how thick it is. So this was the water in the agar mixture. And then the recipe calls for 1/2 cup of walnuts, 1/4 cup of nutritional yeast or nooch, 3 tablespoons of lemon juice, 1, 2, and I knew this was going to be cutting it close because my lemon wasn't that big. Oh, thankfully it's 3 tablespoons exactly. 2 tablespoons of tahini, which is our sesame seed paste. And then in here, I have mixed onion powder, salt, garlic powder, and dry mustard. And you can look at the recipe to see how much of each thing. And then it calls for, and you have an option here, 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. And you know how you open a small can of tomato paste and sometimes you don't use it all. Well, I freeze the extra in a baggie, and then I figure out, oh, that's about a tablespoon, and that's about a tablespoon. So I got this out of the freezer and let it thaw for just a minute to get my 2 tablespoons. But the recipe says you could use one of the following things instead of the tomato paste. You could use a small jar of pimentos or 1/2 cup of carrots, 2 to 3 teaspoons of paprika. Now I've tried some of those, but the tomato paste works best for me. You could even use 1/2 cup of roasted red peppers if you decided to do that. So all of that is spelled out in the recipe. But today we are making it with 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. All right, let's get that blended up, and we will need to scrape the sides down on this one. So let me get my spatula. Okay, I've been blending away here, blending and plunging. I did have to get the plunger out to push the materials down into the blade and scraping, but now it is ready to be poured into a glass dish. And this is just a very versatile recipe. I'm going to show you how to make a quick grilled cheese sandwich with it after this sets up. And it's great on crackers too. You could even put it in salad or wherever you would use little chunks of cheese. The Uncheese Cookbook by Joe Stepaniak has other recipes for like feta cheese. I've made the feta. It's really not bad. And you know, we have other cheese recipes that we go to now for macaroni and cheese and things, but this Colby cheese, even the non-vegans love it. It tastes very much like Colby cheese. There's variations on it too. If you wanted to make cheddar cheese, you would add miso to it. So on the recipe, I will put the variations as well, so you can see how, other options that you have with this recipe. All right, that's it, and I'm going to let this set up, and then I'm going to show you how to make grilled cheese sandwiches. Okay, so what I'm doing here, I've got a mesh pan and I've got my bread. I'm using Dave's Killer Bread. This is the organic 21 whole grains. Dave's Killer Bread is an oil-free bread, but not all types of his bread are oil-free. So be sure to read the label to be sure there's no oil in the bread. So I've started to thinly slice pieces of this cheese. It took about 30 minutes to set up, but leave it in the fridge and it will set up even more. Right now it's to the point where I could make sandwiches out of it, so I'm going to. And then you lay your strips on the bread. Sometimes the strips are longer than the bread, so you'll have these little pieces. I just kind of piecemeal it to get 3 strips on each piece of bread. Of course, it depends on the size of your bread and all of that. Now, because this is a mesh pan, it will brown nicely on both sides, but I found that it does help to flip these midway through. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to continue on making the sandwiches, and then I'm going to bake them at 350 for 10 or 12 minutes. I'm going to keep an eye on them. I'm going to flip them, and I will come back to you when they're all ready. Okay, so here they are, hot out of the oven. They are nicely toasted on both sides. This took 13 minutes on one side, and then I flipped them and did 3 minutes on the other side to get both sides the same toastiness. So you'll notice that the cheese is not gooing out. It's not going to be a gooey cheese. It's very soft though, so when you eat it, it's going to be a soft cheese. This is excellent with tomato soup. So if you like grilled cheese and tomato soup, I included a great recipe for, it's called Lazy Day Tomato Bisque or Lazy Day Tomato Soup, but I think it's bisque. I included that recipe in your meal plan in Module 3 for the easy meatless meals. There's a soup category there, and that tomato soup recipe is there. So combine this with that tomato soup and it is really good. Okay, everybody, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And as always, if you make this, I'd love to know. Thanks.